Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast. I'll be your host today, Mattson, aka The Real Ginge, with my co-host, Alec.
Let's get it.
We are rounding out our month of Mel Brooks directed films. No, we're not going to be talking about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory because I seemingly cannot get that out of my head. That was not directed by Mel Brooks. But you know what is? The History of the World Part 1. A film released in 1981, another American satirical comedy film written, produced, and directed by yours truly, Mel Brooks. This film is a parody of historical epics, presenting a series of comedic vignettes that span different periods in world history. The segments include the Stone Age, Old Testament, Roman Empire, and the Spanish Inquisition and the French Revolution, each filled with Mel Brooks' signature humor and irreverence. So you've got Mel Brooks, Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn, she's like always there. Harvey Korman, always there. Cloris Leachman, always there. Gregory Hines, I think there are a lot. Pamela Stephenson, Shekari Green, Sid Caesar, Mary Margaret Humes, and Orson Welles. Lots of familiar faces making an appearance yet again. And again, I'm not sure if this is my pick or JJ's pick because I just threw a dart at the board.
I hope it was yours.
And you know what's funny? I liked this movie.
No way.
Yes.
I don't believe that.
This, of all the Mel Brooks movies we have reviewed, was my absolute favorite. It's so good, in fact, that Tay and I are going to watch part 2.
You're not Mattson. Who the fuck
I think Alec is stunned. I knew you were going to be stunned.
What? This was your favorite movie? I have to know why.
Oh, you will hear why shortly, but is this one of the more shocking revelations I've given on this podcast?
Yeah, right up there with your 1 to Uncle Buck, 0.5.
Somewhere JJ is cowering in his hurtness. One of my favorite times. So, yeah, like, maybe it's because this was the last thing that I watched. Maybe it's because I like history and I can appreciate the subject matter. I don't know, like, because I could definitely see why I should hate this movie based off everything that I've said for the past couple of weeks. But
yeah,
to me, like, this stuff landed, especially the Roman Empire, the Spanish Inquisition, and the French Revolution. Like, them, they had it going. Like, it was funny, and I mean, I'll talk more in depth about things. But what was also interesting about this is, like, the Stone Age was on there for a little bit. That was probably one of my least favorites, but it was okay. The Old Testament was funny, but I was like, oh, I was like, I thought it was gonna be a lot longer, but it was like so short. I was like, oh, there's so much they could have done here, and they spent so much time in the Roman Empire, which I didn't mind. It was great. I was just curious about the. I thought each of them was going to get their due diligence, but his choice in what he focused on versus not, it was interesting to me, to say the least. I take it you didn't like this as that much.
No, I actually liked it. I did. I just did not think this was going to be anywhere remotely close to something you enjoyed. Because I also really enjoy history. And I enjoy when you can poke a little bit of fun at history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the fact that, during the Old Testament sequence, Moses comes down with
my gosh,
stone tablets. These are the 15, drops one. These are the 10 commandments. Like, I enjoy that kind of stuff when you can, pop a little joke in here about history. Or when they were, in the caveman days and someone died, and it's like they didn't have any time to waste on pointless funerals. They just chucked the dude outside. Like, all of that just cracks me up.
I mean, it made a lot of sense to me, but it was funny. Like, the tablet one, of all the things I could think of, to me, that's that might be my most favorite scene because it was just so simple yet so funny. I was like, oh, this was comedic genius right there. Um, the horse, we need a miracle. That made its appearance a few times. I was like, oh, that was funny. Like I can
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'm trying to this again. This movie's just so full of scenes, but the stories that actually told in each of these five areas, it made sense. Like it didn't. I didn't feel things were detracting in some areas. Like I said with the Old Testament, I could have used more. I was like, shoot, dude, you can
Yeah.
show me more Moses stuff. Like that was funny. There's
You
more
could
you
have
could
so
do.
much fun with that, like wandering in the desert for 40 years or
Yeah.
splitting the Red Sea. You
Well,
could
they
have
and they
a
did
lot of
part of
fun.
that, which was weird to me because in the Roman Empire, then all of a sudden Moses shows up and they need a miracle, and Moses parts the water, and I was like, I'm not sure why he's here now, but
Before
that's
like getting
fine.
shot with a crossbow. Like this to me was a peak pointless humor. I loved most of it. Um, like I mean, Gregory Hines as Josephus, or I think that was his
Hmm.
character's name. Phenomenal, right? Where are you from? Ethiopia. What part? 125th Street. Like, and the way that they just rolled off with the one-liners and everything, the comebacks was just hilarious. Perfectly timed.
Yeah, like it. I mean, there's so many like the stand-up philosopher. I was like, oh, it's an interesting take where he's trying to tell jokes and then he starts what was the first poor joke that he said? It was something about the emperor. I don't remember what it was. But then he said something else to the emperor. I was like, and then they try and kill him, and I thought that was funny. The Vestal Virgins cracked me up because they picked like the hottest people in the Roman Empire, and you're like, you sure they're virgins? You positive? Like,
Well, the best part is those were played by Playboy models.
oh, where is it really? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Of course he did that. Of
Like
course he did.
everything in this is just peak comedy.
Yeah.
Like even to the point where you have uh Oedipus who's blind and Joseph walks
Oh
up,
gosh,
hey
yes.
motherfucker.
Yeah, and Tay was like, "That was random." Then I was like, "Wait, did you catch the name?" She's like, "Oh," and she's like, "That's so clever." And I was like, "Yeah, because that's actually what you would have said to him." Like, was it a curse word? It was just stating fact.
So I think I found that first joke that was in the stand-up philosophy where it's
Hmm.
the poor are so poor they only have one god. The Christians are so poor they only have one god, but we have many gods. Got a god for
Oh,
everything.
hmm.
So, one thing we don't have a god for is premature ejaculation, but I hear that's
Oh,
coming quickly. Like,
goodness.
like I think this might have been my favorite one or one of my favorite that we watched because it's the funny, uh, but also like an irreverent funny, right?
Hmm.
Like it's come not holding back with the jokes necessarily.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
Spaceballs they held back a little bit with Star Wars. You know, High Anxiety they held a little bit back with their parodies, making fun of other stuff. But when he got his hand on history, he just said, "Nope, here we go."
No, I
Um,
agree.
and so I think
I
this one was a little bit more loose and flowy.
Oh, for sure. They came right at religion. We didn't even talk about the Last Supper where he's in there being a waiter and is like,
Can
yo,
we get everybody on that side?
separate checks, get everybody on that side. Like, oh my gosh, like he was holding up the waiter tray to make the halo come up, and I was like, oh, that was so funny. Which was funny because we had just watched the Olympic opening ceremonies, and like people are talking about how some of that could be perceived as sacrilegious with like the runway that they turned into the Last Supper and like the Four Horsemen and stuff. And then I watched this movie and I was like, Mel Brooks don't give a fuck. Like
Yeah.
he's
Oh,
just he's gonna do his thing. And I was like, oh, it's funny. We need to be able to make fun of ourselves. I mean, the Spanish Inquisition, like, just the amount of people that died during that, and they're just out here just rhyming and jiving with the music and just being like,
Uh, and then they bring out the nuns.
oh,
As a way to convert.
savage.
Like, that's what the just absolutely, you just went balls to the wall with everything in this movie.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about. I mean, the last one we really touched on is the French Revolution, the famous "It's good to be king" when he just like does whatever. He just women's breasts are just his plaything, and so he looks at the camera. His fourth wall. It's good to be king. I'm like, I must be good to be king.
I like the chess match right at the beginning where you have the people who are playing the chess pieces, because that was a real thing, like for the royalty in France.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, bishop jump queen, knight jump queen, pawn jump queen, gang bang.
Okay, like,
Jumps.
and then they're like gyrating their hips, and you're just like, you're like, whoa, okay, we're not holding anything back from what we were thinking about there.
Or, hey, your majesty, you look like the piss boy.
You know what's funny about that castle is that was one of the most smelly castles that was known for that, because people in like the queen, it would just relieve herself in the hallway, just like pee or take a dump and just leave it. Like the servants would have to come clean it up. Like they just relieve
Oh,
themselves.
that's weird.
Yeah, like that's just too much. Like maybe go find a room, but I guess they didn't really care. When you're French, just let it out. Weird.
That's just weird.
Yeah, that
I didn't
was
know
very
that.
weird.
That's weird.
A fact you didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Also, count the money. Count the money.
De Monet.
Damn Monet. Yeah, that was. And then like the clever, like trying to replace the king, and
Yeah,
I,
do a little switcheroony.
like, yeah, I just laughed at it all because there's so many good subjects that they just. I think they hit home runs on all facets of it.
They did. It was just every single joke was so perfect. And they were able to mix in, like, I don't know how to exactly describe this, but take modern punchlines and mix them into history and make them sound perfect, right? Like we go back to the Roman Empire where they're chasing around,
Mm-hmm.
and they go into the chemist place or whatever, apothecary, and they're like, it's like, what are you looking for? A pack of Trojans. Oh, we just ran out.
I knew they were. I told Tay, I was like, I know they're gonna say that, and they did, and it did not
Like,
disappoint.
or they have a giant joint that they use to help get
Oh
away
my
from the
gosh, we didn't
Romans.
talk about that. Oh,
Like,
dude.
they have all these great modern punchlines that they're able to tie back into the history of it.
Dude, that
Every
joint
single
one
one of
was
them
so funny.
lands.
I remember turning the tape. I was like, I think he's rolling a mega joint. And I was like, what are they going to do with this? And I was like, this doesn't make any sense, but this is really funny. Like, so weird.
I was just cackling.
And this movie, even at the end, it came out like finished the swing. You thought you were knocked out. It hit you with two more punches with the trailer for part History of the World Part Two, having just done. What did we review with Springtime Hitler? Oh, the producers, and then all of a sudden we see Hitler on ice,
Yeah.
and I was, it's like, oh my gosh, like, yes, please show me how they portray World War II history that way, and then Jews in space flying with their Star of David ships. I'm like, what in the world? All kinds of weird stuff. Loved all of it. Like everywhere was a home run. Everything just made me laugh. Like if anything, like I said earlier, I would have appreciated this movie being a little longer. Like, show me, you could have done 15 minutes of the Old Testament. Show me Moses with the snake staff, and then he's like, these mother effers can't just listen to me. They all have to freaking turn into stone. Like, come on. Like, I mean, it's so much they could have done. Um, I don't know why like it hit so well because I wonder if I'd watched this first, if I wouldn't have liked it as much, and maybe my standards are lower. I don't know. Like it was dang funny.
I thought it was hilarious all the way through. I was giggling.
Man, just so clever, like so just so funny. Like there's so many things we haven't even talked about from like the unemployment line. Like right when he's going in for unemployment in the Roman, he's like, they're like, "Did you what did they say to him? Did you try to?"
Yeah, did you look for any work or whatever?
Yeah, but like, what was his? He's a philosopher, so did you try to bullshit? He's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I tried the bullshit. Like, and then he does all. And then his agent comes up, and then they take the money from right there, and he's like, like.
I booked you a gig.
And then like they show him going into Caesar's palace, and it looked like Caesar's palace, like the hotel. I was like, gosh dang, that's so freaking clever. What a great job. And there's so many other little things we haven't even touched on, but like so many great jokes in this movie. And I talking about it now, I'm like, dang, I should just go watch it again. I'm gonna go watch part two. I really liked this movie. I was like, it was really funny. It was intelligent, historical. I think it benefited from jumping in so many places because you could just focus on what you thought was the funniest.
Yeah.
Like we didn't even talk about one of. I didn't love the Stone Age stuff as much, but like the the introduction of like the world's first critic.
Oh yeah.
The painter's like all of his buddies like it, and they're I'm like, who is this person? Then like I think they put subtitles or whatever, and I was like, oh gosh, he's gonna
The
totally
first
hate this.
art critic.
Yeah, and I didn't realize he was just gonna piss on the artwork, and I was like, man, of course, like that would ruin it because that's how dumb we are as human beings. Like have to validate it through a person that's not even an artist. Like, why do we
Yeah.
care?
So funny.
I got a bit of trivia for you here.
Oh,
So let's see. What was the budget for this film in 1981?
1981. 15 million.
Ooh, pretty close. You were over by 11 million.
Ah, okay.
What did this movie gross?
12.
31 million.
Damn.
Well, did all right.
Did pretty good.
And then, like, in terms of how critics felt about it, mixed reviews. Like, I think all Mel Brooks movies basically are
Mhm.
a lot of praise for its humor and creativity. Others felt it was uneven, um, which I could see why some people feel that way. But I think I remember when it switched from Stone Age and then it jumped, and I was like, I didn't know what this movie was going to be until it started happening. And then even when it switched from Stone Age to Moses, and then the Moses one happened so fast, the Old Testament, I was like, wait, we just jumped to the the Roman Empire? Like we just skipped a massive amount of history because I don't know what I thought it was going to be. But then once I was like, okay, this is what they're doing. They're basically just doing small, short stories. I was super okay with it. So I think if you know that,
Well, it follows the pattern, right? It doesn't break out like a lot of the, uh, like for example, High Anxiety does, right? High Anxiety is just pretty much a tribute to a bunch of other movies.
mm-hmm.
This has its own identity, and it sticks with what its identity is, and then within that, it just tells a bunch of funny jokes. Um, and knowing you and your weirdness, they would probably really like that. That
Mm-hmm.
it sticks with what it is. It doesn't change halfway through to be, you know, like a zoomed out where now it's a production of the history of the world and we're all watching that, or which is which could be a Mel Brooks thing, or it's not just a parody about some other film. It's, hey, we're going to take the history of the world and we're just going to tell it in short format. But it stays true to what it pretty much sells. It's a history of the world, and it takes you up to about the French Revolution.
Mm-hmm. And ending on that French Revolution, we didn't even talk about when Madame Deforge, or however you say that in French, says we're so poor we don't even have a language, just this stupid accent. And there's so much more that uh, you could say, but I think we've talked about it a bunch. Like honestly, for those that listen to this, Alec did not expect me to have high
I'm
praise for
I
this movie.
still think you're lying to me.
I'm telling you, go watch this movie. Rent it on Amazon. That's where I watch it. There's some other places you can pull it up. It's worth a watch. It's a quick watch too. I think it was like hour and 30. Like it wasn't long.
Yeah, it
Maybe
wasn't
it's
too
a little
bad.
bit longer than that. It does not feel long. Go see it. So I guess with that, maybe we, unless there's anything else you want to say, Alec, I'm
I
ready to
don't
rate.
have anything else. Let's rate it.
Well, I went first last time, and I have no idea whose movie this is. It's definitely not yours, but you should go first.
Okay, I get to go first. Let's see. History of the World Part 1, 4.5. I think this was the best movie that we watched this month, hands down. I enjoyed it immensely. Uh, it was just good, funny comedy, and I will be watching it again.
Why not? What's the point five?
What's the 0.5? It's not perfect.
I'm giving it a 4.5 as well. My reasoning for it is I think if they'd given me a little bit more with Moses, I think I could have just done it. Like it was almost too abrupt. I could have used, man, like I said, there's Moses in the burning bush, the staff, the parting the. You could have done. I mean, so much. It just felt a little faster. Give me like two more. But other than that, this movie is comedic gold. Mel Brooks at his finest. Because there's been a lot of things we've seen that has not felt like that, but the jokes landed. The subject matter was great. I could never have predicted this. I will be watching this movie again. This movie is up there for some of my favorite comedies. It's great.
I like it. I do have a real JJ review from Time Out. He says, light on story, big on funny, one of the better Mel Brooks films. So probably going to give it a 1.5. That last part about the 1.5, that was all me, but the other stuff was JJ.
But seriously, listeners, great movie. Hope you enjoyed what you listened to today, but I'm going to pass it over to my buddy, Alec, to bring us home.
All right. This was our last week of Mel Brooks films. Thank you to our patrons, Richard, Mel Brooks, and Alan Smithy for choosing this topic and choosing the films that we watched. If you guys want to get involved with what we watch, Patreon's the place to do it. Patrons select what topic we do for a month, and then they pick what movies that we watch for the month. So that's the place to get involved if you want a little bit more of a hands-on, interactive choosing. You can also make Mattson watch stuff every quarter that he doesn't want to watch. It's great. So Patreon's the place to get the most involved. Outside of that, find us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. That's the best place to connect with us. And we always love people coming in and telling us how wrong we are. That's my favorite thing. With that, I'll kick it back to, let's see. JJ gets baseball terms. Let's go. Basketball, nah. I know. We'll send it back to Comrade Mattson. Better read the dead. Communist leader.
For those that don't know, that phrase is like a communist phrase. I found that after the fact. So timely and very relevant. With that being
my
said,
favorite moment when you figured that out.
I know. I was like, oh gosh. With that said, catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.